live button on YouTube, and we're live. We're getting this party started. And again, this is the STR and Airbnb short-term rental lunch break. We are talking today about how to attract great guests and repel the bad ones. We're here on Clubhouse and on YouTube Live right now. So excited to bring this all into you guys. The goal today, we almost had 100 people in the room last week. We'd love to get to 100 people. So if you are in Clubhouse right now, go ahead and press that plus button down at the bottom and ping in some people that would get some great value or could add some great value to this. And start raising your hand too, because this is a topic I think that a lot of people struggle with. I really have been excited about this topic because I feel like it's something that we've done just a killer job with in the last year. And I feel like there's kind of a little bit of a system and some things that we've done that I wanted to share with a lot of people. So just to give you an idea, like our first year as whole home hosts, so not just rooms, but entire houses. I mean, we must have had at its peak 8 or 9 units in year one, and must have put 40 claims in with Airbnb. And that's a lot. I mean, what that shows you is just a lot of bad guests, and we're letting a lot of nonsense into the house. And so we got to this point where it was like, how do we really repel these bad guests? And so I guess that's more of what I feel like I can bring to the table today, is repelling bad guests. And to me, like, let's start there. So we've got, by the way, we'll go ahead and get Lorena a introduction here too. So Lorena, I'll start with you. Do you have any thoughts? First of all, introduce yourself. And then do you have any thoughts on how to repel the bad guests, keeping the bad guests out of homes?
Kyle, what an amazing topic. I'm so to speak to this. So I'm Lorena, everybody, short-term rental host down here in Atlanta, Georgia. And so bad guests, we have our fill of them down here in Atlanta. And one of the things that my husband and I do in order to kind of mitigate that issue is we look at the reviews. We do have Instabook on, so sometimes, we get them and they book anyway, but we also make these guests speak to their negative reviews. So we have been long-term rental landlords prior to switching over to short-term. And so as a long-term rental landlord, you're asking for your prospective tenants to kind of speak to their rental history. And I don't think that people necessarily think about that when it comes to the short-term space. So if we get a guest that Instabooks with us and their reviews are less than desirable, prior to sending them their booking greeting, we kind of ask them about it. So an example can be, hey, Susie, thank you so much for reserving with us. We really appreciate you considering our home. We've noticed that you had, on your last stay, your last host had some issues in, this regard. Would you be kind enough to, speak to us about it, or let us know what exactly happened? And I think that in doing that, it kind of lets these guests know that, hey, my reviews really count because hosts are going to call me on it, and they have to offer an explanation. And so once they do give us that explanation as to whatever happened, we kind of then begin to reiterate a little bit what our house rules are, and making sure that they confirm and they understand it. So that's one of the tactics that we use, and it has worked for us pretty well. I'm Lorena. I'm done speaking.
That's awesome, Lorena. So the big thing that I hear there is, coming from a position of power, so that you're not like, yeah, we'd love to host you. Go ahead and just press accept now. No, hey, listen, we know you've already booked. We know that you've got, some excitement about staying at our place, but we need to figure out a few things to see if you're actually a good fit for us. And being able to then, point to that negative review or possibly that less than desirable review. I think that puts the guest in a position of, hey, we have to prove ourselves, and also you in a position of power. Would you agree with that, Lorena?
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I actually did that today. So we have a guest that is booking for a one-nighter, and she has a 4.5. And in her last stay, the host mentioned about smoking and, things of that nature. And so in my booking greeting to her, after thanking her and letting her know that we appreciate her business, I mentioned to her that, we want to make sure that you are clear on our house rules. We want you to be able to, we want to be able to give you that 5-star review as well as earn a 5-star review from you. And she was immediately responded, oh, yes. And oh, I appreciate it. And yes, I did read the house rules. So again, it just kind of set the stage for what we are expecting from her and what she should expect from us.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you for that, Lorena. Great opportunity to now bring up some of the other speakers here and ask for their take on this. So I see Majid is on the stage again. Welcome back, Majid. What do you think? Well, first of all, a quick intro on yourself. And then what do you think about how to repel bad guests, keeping bad guests out of your home?
Hi, Kyle. Thank you for bringing me up. Yes, I'm here in Southern California and currently running the arbitrage short-term rentals. We have units here in Santa Clarita, the Valencia area, and also in El Monte. And some ways to repel bad guests on app is we have, after a guest books, we have a confirmation message and have the guests we just have them to confirm the amount of guests or visitors that would be in the reservation, and we also have them confirm that they've read the house rules. And also we're looking into using an app called Wishbox, where you could have the guests submit a photo ID, so you could see that the guest who made the reservation is matching with the photo ID. So those are a few things that we've done that has helped, because when I first started, I figured, we could trust anybody. And then we had 2-3 bad guests back to back to back. So that's helped out a lot. And also for Airbnb, currently have it set to only guests with positive reviews can do an instant book. And if they don't have any reviews or they have some negative reviews, then they have to do an inquiry. And those are a few things that I've implemented that has helped out a lot.
Boom. I love that. I think, especially for you new to Airbnb, that instant book can be a really scary button to press to allow people. But the great thing about instant book is there's two things. One, you can have instant book with, call it, some other pre-quals that are needed. For example, you can have instant book, but they have to have a government ID. They have to have great reviews. There's a couple other things on there that you can do. And for us, we just do instant book with, they have to have a recommendation from another host, just like what, sorry, had a call coming in there. Just like what you said, Majid, have to have a great recommendation from another host. And if they have that, then they can instantly book. But then having that message right after that still says, hey, have you reviewed the house rules? Please do so before we decide if we want to cancel. Because that is a great thing about instant book as well, is if someone instantly books within the first 24 hours, you can cancel without any penalties. So I know a lot of you might be scared about instant book, but in doing an instant book, if you have that 24-hour cancellation period for free, then it really does protect you. Does anyone else have anything to say about that?
I just learned something new. Thank you.
Really, Rafa, you didn't know that?
I had no idea that we had 24 hours to cancel instant bookings.
Sure do, man. Sure do. Yeah, that's the power of instant book.
Kyle, this is Lorena speaking. You also, not only do you have that 24 hours, but as a host who does have Instabook on, if you feel uncomfortable with the booking, I believe Airbnb allows you up to 3 times to cancel those reservations. So again, that is something, that's a tool that you can use in your arsenal belt to cancel that guest if you do not feel comfortable with them.
It's funny because when I don't feel comfortable with it, I always just cancel regardless. And I seriously never knew that we were protected for 24 hours and it was an instant book. I mean, we do a pretty good job about vetting. So we even, like you were saying, Kyle, we add a message that says, please read the house rules in its entirety, and make sure you understand them, and send a message saying you agree to them before instant booking. And I mean, I've only canceled, I think, like 3 or 4, but I'm like, wow, okay, cool. I've always wondered why I've never gotten penalized for it.
Yeah, that's great, man. Well, and I think too, when you send, so one of the things I teach my students is you have to have, this really tight pre-qualification process, whether they have already booked or whether they're trying to book. And I'm not really going to go over that entire pre-qualification process right now, but I think the most important part of that is having your house rules so tight and so clear and so concise that if I have any sort of idea of having a quote unquote gathering party, making noise past 9 p.m., I'm just going to move on and weed out myself as that guest to the next place. I even recently, a friend of mine booked a place for all of us to San Diego, and he's never really booked on Airbnb before. And someone had exactly this. They said, hey, looking forward to hosting you, but make sure you've read all the house rules. And he copy and pasted all the house rules and sent it to me and goes, hey, are we staying at like, I can't even remember what he said. Do you have to like follow all these like crazy Hitler rules every single time that you book an Airbnb? And I told him, I was like, I read over these, and that's exactly what mine says too. And this is really good because it's things like this. If we're going to be making noise after 9 p.m., maybe we should be, scheduling with a different place. But I think having those rules will really do most of the weeding out for you. So like Rafa, the reason I bring this up is because you said you've only had to cancel 3 or 4 times. I know the volume of which you're doing business, and 3 or 4 cancellations is not a big deal. Are you seeing that most people are just moving on to the next one since you're, imposing those house rules? And I know Rafa is busy, so he might be away from it. Majid, did it look like you wanted to say something?
Oh yeah. Also, I could add something. Yeah, what I noticed that when we send our messages and we have the guests confirm house rules, most of the guests, if they're good guests, they don't really care. They just respond, and like the house rules and all the fees, like that doesn't matter to them because they're not up to anything bad. So seeing all the fees and all the house rules, like most guests, like they're like open to it, and it's the ones that start to question the fees and stuff that turn out to be the ones that are up to no good. So I'd say like 99% of the time, most guests don't care about any of the fees or anything because they're just following the rules.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. All right, let's do another intro here. One of our new moderators, Jesse Vasquez, just joined us. Jesse, what's going on, man? You want to give a quick intro? And then right now we're focusing on how to repel bad guests. We're going to get to how to attract great guests here in a minute. But love to get an intro from you, Jesse.
What up, Kyle? What's going on, Jim? Hey, guys. Thanks for having the room, and thanks for having me in and being on stage with everybody. My name is Jesse Vasquez. I am the founder of AirVenture Hosting Company. We are a short-term rental hosting agency company, whatever you want to call it, that focuses on specific unique type properties. I am also an investor, have my own properties as well. I'm located in Central Valley, California, right below Mr. Kyle in Fresno. I'm in the other armpit in the Central Valley. So, I'm here if you guys have any questions or anything. Thanks, Kyle, for having me up. I appreciate it again. And Jesse, thanks.
Awesome. Jesse, do you have any thoughts on how to repel bad guests? Do you have any qualifications or processes for that?
Yeah, you know what? Anybody coming in, if they have 0 reviews, we will screen the heck out of them. We'll ask them a ton of questions, why they're coming, what the nature of their visit is, how many guests they have, how old they are. And usually with that, they either will kind of deter away from that or answer. And usually after you do this for a while, you can kind of figure out who's going to do what and what type of last minute bookings are one other one. Like if you have a high end property, and I've always known almost 9 out of 10 times when you have a higher end property and they book last minute, I'm talking like the same day. It's somebody that's, a bunch of kids are trying to have a party, especially if there's no reviews. I recently just had somebody that booked last minute that had positive reviews, and they said the house was haunted. Like they had this crazy story. Kyle, I'll have to talk to you guys about this offline at some point because it's a long story. But yeah, basically said the house was haunted and all kinds of crazy crap. But you can weed out. I think as you go along, the type of messages you get, you can kind of figure out who's going to do what, when, where, and why. You know what I mean? So I don't necessarily have a process for that, but I mean, you can just kind of feel it out. And RVAs understand that now too. They kind of get it. They've been doing it for a while. But I think it's one of those things that as you learn, you can you start picking it up. It's just, my humble opinion on that.
Okay. Before we move on, can we get all the moderators to flash their mics if they want to hear the haunted house story? Yep. Okay. let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Dude, all right. So this was recently too. This was probably, I don't know, maybe like a week ago. So I got a call. This guest showed up last minute at the house. And this is like a property that's out in the middle of nowhere. It's like you have to prepare to get there. They showed up at like 5 a.m. the day after their check-in with a child, by the way. And there's a Ring doorbell. I went back and looked at it, and the people that were coming in were pretty sketch. And this is like I was mentioning before, this is like a $800 a night house. Stayed there, and then I get a message at like 1 a.m. The daughter, I guess, put a ring on the table, and the ring started like rolling backwards and rolling forward and doing all this crazy stuff. They saw black shadows outside the windows, like knocking on the windows and moving along. And mind you, this house has cameras like all around the outside, so there was nobody there. But they said the ring started like levitating, like floating, and they left at 1 a.m. that same night. Went and stayed at a Best Western, and then sent me a bill from Best Western that was $400 a night. And I'm thinking, like, who the hell pays $400 a night at Best Western? Like, that's not real either. So it was just a crazy, it was nuts, man.
So
ghosts in them, not good.
Scale of 1 to 10, how much do you believe them?
0.075. Not at all, man. I've stayed at that house a couple times. It's out in the middle of nowhere. It's literally out in the middle of nowhere. But if you're, like doing crack for 5 days in a row, you might think there's ghosts outside. Just my humble opinion on that.
Okay, so noted. Don't allow crackheads in your unit, Jesse.
No crackhead policy, everybody.
No crackhead policy.
Oh my
Okay, so
gosh.
for me, it's a level of like integrity, right? Like, I think that the more, and this is like the magnification thing, and I'm going to go on an existential tangent here.
Hey, wait,
like,
Ellie, really quick intro, and then go into your tangent. I'd love to have everyone know who you are.
What's up, Home Slice? That's my brand. I'm Ellie, owner of Home Slice, B&B, property management across the country. Anyway, this existential tangent being about gravitating and magnifying positive things to you. I think like, these micro nuances of things that you do on a regular, consistent basis. Like maybe it's like, your little white lies that you tell other people. Maybe it's like how you treat another property. Maybe it's how you go and experience like your stays when you're going and staying as a guest, or even the little nuances of your appreciation and gratitude that you have when you go to a restaurant. Like all those things magnify, and it also attracts. So I like to believe that, with the certain guests and the way that you live your life, you can actually kind of read them fairly well through just the general correspondence, like their lapse in communication, their energy level, their, timing of maybe it's the time of day in which they're messaging you. So, that's my existential tangent, and I'm going to drop them.
No, yeah, that's really good. I mean, whenever I get a guest saying like they instant book or they try to reserve it and they say visiting, I instantly get like this bad feeling because I'm like, if you actually were going to be a decent guest, you probably would have said something in the fact of, hey, I'm visiting my family. We're going to whatever, a wedding, a funeral, and your place looks amazing and we can't wait to stay there. But when they just say visiting or can't wait or something like that, it's like, okay, red flag right away. Why aren't you giving me a little bit more information? But with that, we've got a couple, or Lorena, did you want to say something first?
No, I just wanted to add on to what you said. I 1,000% agree with you. Like that initial message that the guest sends. And I don't think that sometimes guests realize that we're not meeting each other. So your initial communication kind of sets the tone on how that person is going to, or how that prospective host is going to feel about you. And we had a guest who sent it was a crazy, I was actually looking for it to read it to you guys, but it was a real crazy initial greeting, and it took me off guard. And so I kind of responded to him back like, hey, what's the nature of your stay? And please note that we don't host parties, gatherings, no smoking, yada, yada. And he immediately pivoted. And he apologized, and he was like, oh, no, just my friends and I, we're just coming, to visit Atlanta and, do the Beltline and yada, yada. And he says, he gave me kind of his background. He is he's a lawyer or something to that effect. And so I said to him, I said, oh, great. Thank you so much for clarifying, because your initial message was off-putting. And so I don't think that people necessarily realize you have to present your best foot forward in that initial greeting message.
Totally. And it could be, one more thing I wanted to say, it could be like some wealthy ass person, or it could be some bum on the street. But still, like, the wealthy ass people are sometimes even worse, because you can tell the trigger points, like, they're going to be pain in the asses from the get-go, So I would just say, back on the existential question thing about like how to retract and repel, like, if the person isn't vibing with you well, then just drop them. You don't need that guest. You're opening the window for a better one. It's not always about the money.
I completely agree, Ellie. And if I could chime in as well, Kyle.
Yeah, go for it, John.
Yeah. So one of the things that I do as part of my messaging is I obviously tell them no parties, only registered guests are allowed in the house. But most of my properties are condos, so I can kind of get away with this. And the other thing that I add to that is, I'm sharing all this with you because we recently had a guest who ignored these rules, and then the building management ended up kicking them out, and we don't want anyone to have a bad guest experience. Now, that didn't happen, but I just put that out in advance so that if anyone's, thinking of having a party at my property, they're kind of alerted that, that ain't going to happen. So, that's one of the ways that I try to repel. And I've had people who cancel their request or their reservation immediately. And then other people, just like, hey, I completely understand. It's all cool. We're not going to have a party. So that's one of my tactics, is kind of, like Ellie said, it's a white lie. But I do use that white lie to kind of get people to self-filter themselves out of my property.
That's a great one, John. I was actually just about to say that one. I think it's a great way to help filter. And I'd be curious to know if anyone else also kind of takes this tactic. In addition to doing that, sometimes if we have it listed all up and down, no parties, no parties, no parties. But then if I have just kind of like a weird kind of vibe or a second guess, sometimes I'll kind of try to take a more of like a good cop, or more of a kind of try to catch more flies with honey sort of approach. And so I'm like, I just try to be conversational and I'm like, hey, just maybe put on my detective hat. I'm like, hey, super excited to host you. Just want to kind of clarify, what would be the maximum head count and car count we can expect for your upcoming stay, just to kind of just maybe take more of a kind of a friendly approach, and just see if I can get them talking a little bit, see if I can maybe disarm them and kind of get them like, hey, just out of curiosity, just what would be the maximum head count? I see you're saying that you're only bringing 3 or 4 people on your initial booking or instant booking or your inquiry, but just, what can we expect, like maximum car count? And then sometimes they'll come back, well, we might have anywhere up from 6 or 7 cars, but not everyone's going to be spending the night, only the 3 or 4 of us. I'm like, okay, red flag right out of the bat, So just, I don't know if anyone else takes that approach. And sometimes I'll just kind of really try to hash down, hey, what can we expect, maximum head or car count specifically? And that sometimes kind of gets, sends up the red flags a little bit.
I really like that. That's awesome. Yeah, because that tells a lot, right? It's an easy question. It tells a lot. And it's also something that if the guest is being asked that, now they're like, oh, we're actually being asked that question. Maybe they are going to be a little bit more active hosts than what we were expecting. And they might even, move on to the next person or cancel. And, you've just literally weeded out. They've weeded out themselves, just like what I talked about. I think that's the goal, right? Let the guests weed out themselves so you don't have to do all this effort and do all this work. So I guess with that being said too, what's one way that everyone is automating that process? Because this probably to a lot of people in the audience right now is like, wow, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of things like that we're having to do just to accept a guest. If I have more than one property, that sounds overwhelming. Is there something that you're doing to automate this, call it cancellation or pre-screening process? I know there's one of you that's automating it.
Hey, can I chime in here, Kyle?
Yeah, go for it, Heather.
All right, guys. Hi. Nice to see everybody in the room today. I'm actually in Vegas from Park City. We decided to take a much needed, very quick vacation and head to Vegas. And it's been really interesting being in Vegas now after launching our own business. Of course, we've been in the short-term vacation rental business for 4 years now, but owning our own business now, it kind of gives you a different perspective. But yeah, I would say to answer your question specifically, Kyle, I say based on our experience that you remove automation as much as possible from this aspect. And the reason I say that is that because we call, and many of you have heard me speak in other rooms, I guess just a quick intro for those who have not. I'm Heather Brown, and I'm the co-founder, co-owner of Stay Lux Luxury Vacation Homes in Park City, Utah. And so we've been taking the approach of, as many of you have heard, we call every single guest. We call and text. So Bo is our guest, kind of does the guest relations for us. And that makes a huge difference because you do, I've liked what everybody else has had to say, that you have that ability to really connect with somebody when you are talking to them personally. And here's the thing, when you've made a personal relationship with somebody via phone or text, they are far less likely to disappoint you because they know you now. And so you're going to have what I call the 1%ers, no matter what. And I've shared that in a couple of other rooms. That's what we call them, the 1%ers. We had one this last week where the lady, she booked. And here's one of the things that I will say is that I think that one of the key red flags is also last minute bookings. Typically that's an indicator that they really didn't think this through and there could be potential problems. Now, granted, the booking windows are fairly small because of COVID and pent-up demand, so I do understand that aspect of it as well. But in this particular case last week, the gal had booked last minute, the day before, and then when Bo called and initially sent his text and then called her, she was immediately offended by the rules and policies of the property. Oh, I have never had this happen before. I have stayed in Airbnbs for years. And, I should be able to do whatever I want. So, for instance, we tell them that they need to be careful with the white towels. Obviously, we all want people to be careful with our linens because we know that that's one of the highest costs of doing business as a short-term vacation rental. And so that's mentioned, when in the beginning is, hey, please be sure that you use the gray towels that are provided for any kind of anything that might stain the white towels. And she was just irate. Well, I should be able to do whatever I want with the towels. And so in that case, that's obviously an indicator that it's not worth arguing with somebody about something. We tried to just be very calmly, say, oh, that wasn't meant to offend you. We've just found that in the past, there are certain guests that don't understand, that they need to use the gray towels for whatever. And it was definitely not meant to offend you. Well, I'm terribly offended, and so to Ellie's point, that's when you realize that you're not on the same vibrational frequency and you just have to let it go. And I have found in my time doing this that the universe will fill the spot for you in some way or another. I don't even know how to explain that, but we have found that the times where we let go of that guest and say, hey, listen, even though it's outside of the cancellation policies, we're going to go ahead and just refund you in full. We would like for you, we'd rather you be happy. That it comes back to you in spades. You know what I mean? So that's what I would put out there is I would say the less automation is good or is better. And I'm saying that from a portfolio of currently 20 properties, soon to be 23 properties. We still call every single guest. So I'm done.
Okay, so I've got a question for the rest of the moderators. And Heather, thank you for the transparency and honesty of your answer. Love having you on stage and showing your perspective. But I'm willing to bet some moderators probably might be on the opposite end of that. So I want to hear from a moderator that is actually working on automating that process and see if we can get a little bit of back and forth here. So it looks like Neil has something to say.
Yeah, sure. I just want to kind of like I'm a pretty good host and stuff. Like I have I'm in Calgary, Alberta, and I have about 40 properties that I manage through co-hosting, arbitrage, and owning. So like my incident rating is probably one incident for every 2 years per property. So it's like very few times that I ever get incidents because I'm so stringent on house rules, questioning people, and all that stuff. But during COVID, it has gone from once every 2 years to once a year. And so my incident rate basically doubled overnight. And I didn't actually understand why that was. So then I just kept on plugging along. And then I had 4 incidents in the same building last month. So 2 stolen packages, 1 prostitute, and 1 guy urinated in the parking lot, right? Normally that's not a huge deal for an average like short-term rental host. But my building is like very heavily surveillanced, and any like little thing, like they'll fine you right away, and Airbnb doesn't cover condo board fines. So I kind of did a data analysis on my last 650 reservations in that building, and to see exactly like what are the characteristics of these guests who are booking and who cause incidents. And actually, so reviews wasn't even the biggest metric. So about 60% of people who cause incidents had less than 5 reviews, right? And about a couple of them had 0 reviews. Most of them had at least 1 review and were instant bookable, which is interesting. The biggest metric that I found to determine if the person's going to cause an incident was advance notice on bookings. That was by far the most. So all of my incidents in that building, I think there was 14 or 15. There was 1 person who booked more than 1 day out. So virtually all the incidents was 1 day or less lead time on the booking. So they booked the same day or they book a day in advance. So that was the biggest thing for me. So then I have started to implement an advance notice policy. So in your Airbnb settings, you can actually have a setting where you set days in advance. So there's 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, or 7 day. So if you hit 3 days in advance, it doesn't prevent somebody from booking. It just makes so that they can't instant book within the 3 day window. So if somebody is instant bookable and they try to book a same day reservation for you for the same day, and they're instant bookable, it won't actually book. It'll send it to a request instead. And then that's when you go hard on the questioning. And actually, so I've actually implemented damage deposit policy for people who are not instant bookable. So that means that if somebody's booking 3 days or less in advance, they have to pay a damage deposit for them to stay. I've been doing that for about a couple of weeks now. It's been going really good. I had about maybe 7 bookings, and 6 of them, the people were totally cool with paying the damage deposit. And there was 1 that wasn't cool with it, who wanted to book the same day. So I'm actually kind of glad they didn't actually book, because like basically like my life's on the line in this building. If I get any more incidents, I might get kicked out of the building. And I have 12 units in that building, so it's huge. So yeah, like even I want to hammer this point home. reviews aren't the be all end all. It's way more. It's advanced booking, and you have to be super careful with people one day or less in advance, even if they have good reviews. Like I said, like the last 4 incidents that I had this month, they were all instant book guests. One of them was a prostitute with 7 excellent reviews. It was a real head scratcher when I learned that they're prostitution. Another guy actually stayed with me before. He stole a package. The guy who urinated in the parking lot, he had all good reviews. So yeah, like I wouldn't even say reviews would be all end all. I'd say like it's more so advanced bookings. And that's kind of why I think that I've had more incidents pandemic than pre-pandemic, because during the pandemic, you have so many more empty calendars and you don't have that much wiggle room in terms of advanced bookings from now till 7 days from now. Like I'd have a lot more advanced bookings pre-pandemic, but now it's all last minute bookings. So yeah,
nice.
Like, but definitely focus on if somebody's booking the same day or the next day, that's a big red flag.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, Neil, for chiming in. Rafa.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm back. Neil, I love that, man. So it's funny, we were just talking about KPIs yesterday in a different room, and that's a perfect thing that you're doing to figure out how to weed out those instant booking guests. I love what you said about doing the 3 days out. One of the reasons why I got off of booking.com was because we would get a lot of troubled last minute guests and we had to implement certain rules like that. I wanted to ask you a question about the security deposit. So it goes in terms of like, I guess, do you actually take the money like through a resolution request and then give it back to them after they leave? Or how do you implement that? Because most of us already have a security deposit on the listing. Are you asking for something additional on top of that, or do you not ask for anything at all? And when you get those last minute bookings, that's when you ask for a deposit?
Yeah, so like Airbnb says that they take a security deposit, but they're not taking a security deposit. There is no security deposit at all for Airbnb whatsoever. So yeah, after you say there's a security deposit, you lay out the terms and conditions of the security deposit. After they book, you send a resolution request, and then they pay through the resolution center. If anyone wants to do that, most guests don't know what the hell the resolution center is. So I just do go to airbnb.ca/resolutions, and then they could just click on the link and it'll take them right there. Otherwise, they can't navigate to it because it's really hard to navigate to. So that's what I just kind of do. And then they go there and pay. If they really, really can't pay, in Canada, we have e-transfer. So I just say e-transfer. It's technically against the rules, Airbnb's policy. If you take payment off platform, even for deposits. But if they like really can't do it and you have to do it, I just take it off platform. But 90% of the time, it's all on platform through the resolution center.
Hey, Rafa, too. I just found this out, and I'm starting this May 1st. Ellie told me about this. It's called Waiver. If anyone is interested in this, go ahead and just DM me on Instagram, and I can get you connected with the right people to talk to. But it's literally $23 per booking, and I just added it to my cleaning fee. And they will protect you for $5,000, no questions asked. And so I don't have to discuss like that with the guest at all. I don't have to be like, hey, send me a damage deposit. I don't have to explain it. I just added $23 to my cleaning fee. And if anything happens, I just talk to Waiver and say, hey, guest damaged some linens, it's going to be $150. Or, hey, guest stole a TV, it's going to be $400. And no questions asked, they pay us back. A lot more streamlined than the Airbnb claims and resolution center. And pretty much what it sounds like, 100% guarantee that you'll get it refunded. Whereas Airbnb, they're always looking for ways not to pay you back.
Hey, hi. Oops, sorry.
Go ahead, Lorena, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Rafa. I just had a quick question, Kyle, in reference to, you said it was called Waiver, am I correct?
Yeah, Waiver. I believe it's spelled WAIVO.
Thank you for that. So just a quick question. So would you also submit a claim for damage through the Resolution Center as well as using the Waiver?
That's a good question because I haven't actually officially started yet. I don't quite know. And I've kind of thought about that on an ethical standpoint. Like, well, if I'm getting paid by Waivo and I'm also getting paid by Airbnb, is that right? I don't know. So
no, Ellie does. Ellie doesn't reach out to the Resolution Center when she's using Waivo.
There you go.
Uses the Waivo. Yeah. So we do something similar, but we've actually kind of monetized this with our business on some level. And we're not, that's not really our thing, is to monetize everything inside of our reservation process. But we do a damage waiver, and that's coming from, just several years being in the business and kind of plugging into oh my gosh, I can't speak. Plugging into something that some of the other major players in the space do. And the reason for a damage waiver is essentially it's like a combination of the two things that you guys just talked about. So it's a combination of like a security deposit and a Waivo. So essentially we attach a damage waiver to each property, and we put this in our listing. The lower properties probably are going to have somewhere around 59, somewhere to 59 to 79. And then our higher end luxury properties are going to be in the 99 range. And it's a non-refundable fee that is charged to the guest. And it's explained to the guest that $99 covers them for up to $1,500 of unavoidable, unintentional damage to the property. And that if we find that something is, avoidable or intentional, then that's when we would be asking them to pay for that damage. So as an example, you have somebody that comes into the property, their son gets a nosebleed and there's blood all over the sheets, and you now have to replace all these sheets, obviously, because they're damaged. That's unavoidable. But so their damage waiver is going to cover that. They are in the kitchen and they're washing dishes, and a glass item breaks or something like that. Now, obviously, these are smaller things, but we have found through the years that those damage waivers actually work really, really well. And essentially, what you're doing in that case is you're self-insuring, because when you're talking about, let's say that you have 8 bookings that in a single month, and each of them are paying $99, you've now just pocketed close to $800 in damage waivers. So you do that 2 months and you've already covered enough to cover $1,500 worth of damage. So we've just found that that's been a really, it's been ideal for the way that we do business. I mean, obviously that's not ideal for other people, but that's something that we do. But I will say too, that back to what the guest before, or the moderator before was talking about, that there are definitely reasons why COVID hit the way that it did. We have to remember that in early COVID timeframe, and it's not so much now, but in early COVID timeframe, you had a completely demographic of people who all of a sudden had a lot of money to spend at leisure because they were tapping into unemployment. You're talking about the kids that are in the 18 to 20-year-old range, all of a sudden had $600 extra a week to spend, and they were ready to party. And so there were some dynamics here that changed that are obviously kind of going by the wayside. But I think that's really important to remember. And I think it's also important to remember when you're talking about reviews that many of us, if not all of us, who are using automated systems, we're also automating our review process for guests. And so unless there's something like this is what I found, at least from the companies that I plug in with, companies that work in the same, the same field, that many times there's not somebody there that's manually writing reviews or leaving reviews for these guests. It's an automated process. And so, yes, to this other moderator's point, you are going to come across those guests that may have, 3 or 6 or 10 5-star reviews. That doesn't necessarily mean that they were an ideal guest. It could have just been that they booked through a place that left an automated review for them, because we all know, I know going into property management software, I was told by my onboarding specialist, oh, you want to automate this to leave a 5-star review for everyone, because that's what's going to get you a 5-star review as a host as well. So people are kind of trained to do that. And so to his point, yeah, seeing a bunch of 5-star reviews for a guest does not necessarily mean anything. You still have to weed through. You still have to do your job of vetting guests. And so anyway, I will leave it at that.
And Heather, sorry, Kyle.
All you, John, go for it.
All right. Yeah. So Heather, yeah, I definitely automate my reviews, but I use Smart BNB, which there's a bad guest function. And so you turn, if it's a bad guest, you turn off the automated review, and then you basically write a real review and whatever stars you want. And then it publishes it at the last possible second before the review period ends, so that, there's no retaliation. So that's one thing that I'm doing. The other thing,
several of the property managements, to that point, John, I think several of the property management softwares do that same thing. And so, yeah, that's definitely, you want to take advantage of that. We've only had to do that, I think, twice in the entire time we've been in business. We've only had to turn that off and then leave our honest review, because let's just be honest, we all need to be doing that. We all need to be leaving honest reviews. And we actually, the one that was most memorable, the guy tried to sue us. He put up his own website that was like thetruestaylux.com or something like that. He never posted anything on it, but he was threatening us through email. He was threatening Bo through his phone. I mean, threatened to take us to court because we left him a bad review. It was all entirely honest and very tactful in the way that it was written. But yeah, I mean, you're going to get the 1%ers, right? Is what it is.
And then the other thing that I've kind of, similar to kind of what Neil was saying in terms of figuring out profiles that might be not dangerous, but, might raise red flags, are profiles that have been around for a while, let's say 2-3 years, but have 0 reviews. So I just ran into this guest that, she's been around, and everything verified in terms of her profile, but 0 reviews. And, last day before checkout, she lists a litany of things that, the fan was a little bit loud and the shower wasn't working properly, and basically said, I really don't want to leave a review, so, can you adjust your price? And I was like, that's her trick.
I love those, John, because we all know that we're going to get paid and they're going to get the review removed.
Exactly. And so, so now I have, and then she also broke some, $500 table. And so we're going through resolution. We're going to get that. My VA is a former Airbnb rep, so I'm just like, take care of it, make sure we get paid, and make sure our review gets removed. But yeah, I mean, I can just tell she's been using this review thread at the last day, so, and not leaving reviews, and that's been her MO. So that's another kind of red flag to look at. I'm not saying everyone, but that kind of makes sense that someone who doesn't have reviews for 2-3 years, that could be part of the game.
So you're saying that the review gets removed because they're messaging you asking for a discount, and you're sending that to the resolution center showing that they're trying to bribe you for a discount? Is that the play there?
Extortion.
Yeah.
Got it.
You're not allowed to take the review for hostage to try to get money.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, John.
Awesome. Great. That's good stuff. Hey, we're almost towards the first hour here, and there's some people that have not given themselves introductions or given some feedback as well. So would love to do a couple more intros. Norman, thanks for being with us here on the stage today. You want to give a little bit of an intro, and if there's anything that you want to share from what we've been talking about for repelling bad guests that you do.
Yeah, sure. So appreciate you guys inviting me to the party. My name is Norm Hamilton. I'm a host based out of Houston, currently managing 19 units. Some of the things that we do to vet our guests are we give our team criteria for each guest. So we look at reviews that the guest leaves for other people. We check to see how soon is the booking. We look at the message that the guest is actually sending us, that initial screening message. Not screening message, sorry. The initial message they send us. So I think earlier somebody was saying if the guest just says something like visiting, that's usually a red flag. We keep track of those things as well on our side. As far as the automation goes, when somebody books with us and it's in our rules, they have to sign a contract, a short-term rental contract, which also has a copy of the house rules in it. That's spelled out into the property as well in the additional rules, so everybody sees it before they book. We usually require for people to insta-book. They need recommendations from other hosts on top of a profile photo, on top of valid ID. And because our market has changed so much, the property managers also want us to collect ID. So that's also in our rules as well. So everybody who stays with us knows that they're going to have to provide that information to like validate who they are, because sometimes you do get fraudulent reviews where like the ID doesn't match the reservation, and that's for direct bookings as well. We have a contract that automatically goes out to everybody who books with us. We have a vetting system for guests, and we also look at reviews that they leave other people. And then also if they say that, we have a registration form, which basically generates that contract. So when they fill out the form, they tell us they have pets, they have two options. They can either just pay through the resolution center, or a lot of people just think it's more convenient to just like pay offline. So we automatically generate an invoice, they pay the pet fee, and they're good to go. And our back office team maintains communication with the guest. And like if it's an emergency, or like if they really, really need help, they can call either us, or they can call somebody who's working at the time.
Awesome. Norman, thanks so much, man. That's great information. So I feel like that's a whole topic in itself, but I would eventually like to come back to that and see how you're automating. You mentioned, they're automatically getting, charged for the pet deposits, sending them to the resolution center. So go ahead.
I was gonna say my background is software development, so I just write code that does that to like calculate the pet fee, and then there's like tools and stuff that I can use to like not have to write code to get it to them. So
you're special. We can't do what you're doing.
Nah, you can do it. You can do it. It's just there's like a non-code way to do it.
Okay, cool, man. Thank you for being on the stage. John, you've added a lot of value so far, but can you give yourself a quick intro here?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. My name is John. I'm the founder of Ohana Stay. It's a hospitality brand out in Honolulu, Hawaii. And so I have about 13 properties right now. But my claim to fame is each of my niche properties that I manage generates about $200,000 per property. And I love technology and using technology in short-term rentals, and so I like to talk about technology as well. That's it for me. Thanks, Kyle.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Always a pleasure having you on stage. And Rachel.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for having me, Kyle. Rachel Gainsborough. I'm based out of the south of Atlanta area, Peachtree City, Georgia. Own properties in Georgia, Florida. We have new construction in Tennessee as well. And I'm managing properties in the Poconos, Pennsylvania.
Perfect. Thank you, Rachel. And Bethany, I want to call on you if you've got a question. We can wait, but
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel. And I might have hopped on a call there. Bethany, thank you so much for holding, Bethany. And a quick intro for
I
those
forgot to unmute myself. Hey, sorry about that, Jim. I was talking with my mic muted.
No problem at all. I think I was trying to talk to Bethany. It looks like Bethany just hopped off.
Yeah, all good. Everyone on YouTube Live that's watching right now is like, wait, why isn't that going through? But anyway, all right. So resetting the room here. You're watching or listening to the Airbnb STR lunch break. This week, we're talking about how to attract great guests and repel bad ones. And we just spent an hour talking about how to repel the bad ones. So I would love to transition right now on how to attract great guests. So this I feel like is a completely different conversation. And I would love to know, is anyone just dying to share what they do to attract great guests? And by the way, really quick, before Norman, I see you jumped in here. Before we do go to you, we are so far today, we've been seeing about 50 people in the group. I would love if we could get to that 100 mark that we were talking about. Press that add button below, invite someone else in here. And we've got an hour left of just great knowledge. So Norman, go for it, man.
You have to, from my experience, I'd say you have to, first of all, you have to offer a great customer or a great guest experience consistently. But if you're just getting started, I would say definitely make sure you have good amenities in your place, and your place actually looks like the photos. And also just make sure that, like, you know, if you're having all this screening stuff, but definitely make sure that, like, your check-in process is as smooth as possible for the guests, because I noticed that, like, what we noticed was that, like, if anything went wrong with the check-in, historically, like, it had a huge effect on how, like, it had a huge effect on our relationship with the guests throughout their stay, just because, you know, a lot of people don't want to be booking a place and then they go somewhere and, like, there's problems, like, right out the gate. So if you can ensure that, like, your place actually looks like the photos, and, like, you're being completely honest with basically everything that's going on with your listing, and you truthfully, like, help the guest out throughout their stay and provide a value experience, a lot of the times you'll consistently be receiving good guests, because you have good guests that are leaving reviews. And then also, like, look for those opportunities to go above and beyond and do things that people aren't doing. So, like, some of what we're experimenting with right now is we're trying to do handwritten postcards for a lot of our guests. We're experimenting with that on, like, a couple of units, not everything, but like we're seeing relative success from it. People really like it. And honestly, if you can consistently just make people feel, like, special within your properties, you can usually, one, you'll have them coming back, and then two, like, you'll consistently get good reviews, which will consistently attract good people, despite having some relatively strict things inside of your additional rules. Because if good people are booking, they're leaving good reviews, other people are seeing that, they're like, oh, hey, like, yeah, they're collecting all this, but I'm getting a good stay. So that's me.
Adding on to that, in terms of ensuring easy access, in other words, guest check-in is smooth, I completely agree, and that's probably one of the biggest emergencies that can happen in this business. And so what I do is I have belts and suspenders of multiple ways that I can get people into the unit, ideally without having to call a on-ground staff to let them in. And so I completely agree with that. You know, if someone's waiting 5-10 minutes to try to get in when they just arrived, that just ruins it. And then I guess the other way to talk about it is when you're trying to repel bad guests, it's a short game, right? Like, someone requests, you do some things, and you can repel them. To attract good guests, it's a long game, like Norman was saying. You know, it's you doing all the things right over time while you're building trust with your past guests that then convey that trust to your future guests. So yeah, it's a long play. You're not in just to make a quick buck. You're in to provide good hospitality, and that's how you attract the good guests.
That's so good. I love that short game versus a long game, because that's a really great way of putting it. You know, it's especially when you have a new listing, right, John? You know, you haven't had the chance necessarily to play the long game with that new listing. Maybe if it's connected to your Airbnb profile and people can see your other listings, then they know the experience they're going to get. But that long game is something that you got to play to get the good guests in. I think too, for us, we've just really tried to stop offering discounts. We notice that if you offer discounts, you're going to get people that are looking for the discount. And if they're looking for a discount, typically someone is not appreciative of a discount. They're saying, okay, we got a discount. Now what else can we get? Like if you give a mouse a cookie, they're going to want some milk. They're going to want to have their cake and eat it too. And so we've stopped doing discounts. Does anyone else have an opposing view on discounts or similar view?
I agree with you. We don't do discounts per se, but we do incentivized pricing. So, like, the discounts factor into the price, but just to give one-off discounts, we don't do that anymore.
I completely agree. My prices are set to market factors, and that's what I tell them. But yeah, if you start giving them one discount, especially when they're booking, then it starts setting that habit of, oh, such and such happened, I want a discount. And we just went down that road a couple times, and now we price appropriately but do not provide discounts.
Kyle, can I jump in real quick and ask you a question kind of similar to this? So you're talking about discounts right now. What about refunds? So say somebody jumps over to your house, the spa isn't working, and they're asking about a refund or a discount or something of that nature. What are you guys doing then?
I can go. For me, there's two things that we're experimenting. I can't talk today. There's two things we're doing. The first one is like we'll do gift cards if the mistake is on us. The next thing we're experimenting with is like having an oath, which is basically like our guarantee that like if there's anything wrong with the place, the first night's on us, and that's really just us taking accountability and just putting our money where our mouth is. Obviously, like we have a cleaning team take photos of the place in between each cleaning, so like our back office knows that like this is what the place looked like after it was clean. But yeah, that's one of the things we're doing to make sure we hold ourselves accountable.
I would agree with that. But what Roman said, I actually, if there's ever some sort of hiccup or problem, I actually preemptively, if I think that it might go in that direction, I'll just be like, hey, I might Papa John's app pulled up here. Do you like cheese, pepperoni, or sausage? I'm going to have something to you in about 20 minutes. And normally I can spend $15-20 and then, put out a quick hiccup as opposed to them like asking me for some sort of refund.
Yeah, I love that. I'd much rather add value than give money back. And, Jesse too, like, I think one of the things that we do is as new hosts, especially like if there's a cleaning issue, right? Hey, this place isn't cleaned. We initially think like, oh, let's refund them the cleaning fee. But sometimes if you just ask the guests like, hey, how can we make this right? If they say a refund, we then go into a kind of negotiation mode, but we'll also ask, okay, is there anything else that we can do to make this right? How about, maybe a credit towards another stay, or maybe just like what Jim said, hey, we can send over a gift basket. Is there something that, or maybe you've got, a couple, maybe it's a couple and you say, hey, can we send over a bottle of wine, as a sorry for this situation. So I always like just having our team ask, what is something that we can do to make this situation right? And then if they ask for a refund, is there anything else outside of a refund that we can do to make this situation right?
Yeah, good. One reason why I'm asking is because there's a property I have that's the same one where the crackhead lady said there was ghosts. There's a spa out there. Those of you guys that have spas, I mean, they're such a pain in the ass. That they're a draw point, they're amenity that people like to have. But there's always, when you have people in and out of them all the time, they can become a hassle. So we're running into tons of spa issues with this specific place, and that out in the middle of nowhere, there's really nothing to do except for kind of hang out in the spa. So we're getting a lot of inquiries that, the spas, we'll have a spa company out there all the time, like literally once a week, but there's something in between the week that'll happen. And I've noticed it's been an issue, and a lot of guests are like, asking for money back. And, I used to be worried about the negative reviews of not, giving back to them money, but now I'm looking at it, I can't order pizza for anybody out there either, Jim. It's like there's nothing out there. So I'm trying to figure out creative ways to make sure that, we can keep the guests happy. And, we provide like a bottle of wine and stuff when they show up, but still, people typically will want some type of refund. So.
Hey, Jesse, are you draining the spa between every guest?
Yeah, our crew goes in there and they do that. Yeah, we drain between every guest because, the house holds about 10 to 12 people, and typically that's how many people are kind of hanging out in the spa. So we're doing that every single time that they're there, but there's still issues that we're running into with the spa. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think too, like any opportunity that we have to learn how, because a refund it's a reaction, right? It's having a situation happen and then you got to react. So then how as a team can we be proactive about this in the future so that we don't have to react in the future? And so I find that for us, it's always a cleaning thing, or more than not, it's a cleaning thing. So how are we able to continue to improve our cleaners and their systems so that we don't have to keep on, dealing with a guest that's saying, hey, we found a couple hairs in the bathroom and is this place clean? Can we get a refund? Any chance that we get to learn from the situation and be better hosts and start to figure out like, okay, what are proactive ways to start to put the kibosh on stuff like this? But that does sound like a tough situation, Jesse, with that being in the middle of nowhere. I wish I had some more value for you, man. I don't know what to do there for you.
Well, thanks, Kyle. I appreciate that.
All right. So, Rachel, did you have something?
So sometimes, really quickly, just not jump in here, Kyle. Also, Jesse, if you have like a situation or hiccup, if you're in the middle of nowhere, sometimes what I'll do if I don't have the most pleasant of interactions with the guest, maybe something hasn't even gone wrong, but I just kind of get the vibe that maybe like something might have slightly put them off, or they don't seem to be like super cordial, and then they check out, they leave the house in good shape. Sometimes I'll just kind of, like Kyle was talking about, like try to be a little go on the offense or be proactive. Like, hey, just to let you know, really appreciate you guys being a great guest. Really appreciate you guys staying with us. And if there's anything we can do to give you the hookup for next time, or like maybe next time you're in town, like happy to give first night off on us, something like that. 9 times out of 10, that person might not be coming back through your area, but at least they see a good faith gesture that maybe isn't impacting your bottom line for that exact reservation, but it's still like a positive step forward. Just let you know that, hey, you are trying to have like a positive goodbye type of thing. So I don't know if that would be exactly applicable for this situation, but I just sometimes I try to lead with that to kind of leave try to get rid of the bitter taste in their mouth any way we can.
Offer that, but sometimes with the higher end clients, the standards are much. They expect a lot more. So I think that's part of the issue as well. So if there's an amenity that doesn't work, they're going to want some type of credit or something. It's just what I've noticed. Having my own properties that are like I would say considered B, B plus properties, and then having like an A plus property, it's $800 a night. There's a different type of mentality that comes through the door, and you have to act accordingly, and you have to be able to, any amenity that goes wrong. I even have people that are like, the bathtub and it has heated bat, the bathtub has the special type of bathtub, and Kyle, I'm gonna have to actually touch base with you at some point, because I know you were talking about making videos, or there's like a scan bar or something like that. Need to probably do something like that for some of these properties for specific things. But yeah, there's the property type. Once you get up into that higher end, there's just a different type of expectation that's needed, and I think that's where, even when it comes down to amenities, where the separation starts. There has to be a different type of standard that comes along with it. So I don't always want to give money back either. And Jim, you're right. I always ask that. Can I offer you a stay next time or whatnot? But anyway.
Yeah, I was going to mention that I know that the spas can be really challenging. If it's a consistent unit that spa often has issues, is there a way to kind of frame that for the guest that's booking to level their, to kind of set their expectations? I don't expect that it's going to be, consistent all the time that the spa in one particular unit has issues. But you tend to know which units have issues, and we have luxury properties as well. And so kind of level setting, setting the expectations, especially if you have an ongoing issue, I found it to be helpful. But I wanted to add, in terms of guests, attracting ideal guests or our ideal guest avatars, what we've implemented recently at All Pocono Rentals is kind of a guest rating system within the organization, where, if, we had an incident where there was some paraphernalia left behind, well, that guest would not get a good rating at all, and they would be added to the do not book list if they break house rules, and additionally they would be added. They would be barred from booking, and we wouldn't send them any targeted emails. However, if the guest is a wonderful guest, followed the rules, left the home relatively decent condition, and then if they left a really great review, we've implemented kind of like a VIP status where we do target them with emails, and we send them coupons, when not during the blackout or anything, coupons letting them know, oh, Cigar Festival's coming again, here's a 10% for being a VIP type of email. So kind of keeping that communication going and incentivizing them that way. And so this is Rachel. I'm complete.
Yeah, repeat guests. That's for sure. Rachel, I guess a follow-up question is, because I know you guys have a lot of properties. Is there a certain way that you are identifying which guests are worth inviting back and which aren't, or are you being that particular? Is it just, hey, as long as the place looks good and there was no damage or nothing missing, then they go on the VIP list? How do you determine if they're on the VIP list?
So I guess you can kind of stride it into 3 categories. There's the do not book list. There's I would say the standard guest list, and then a VIP list. And so the VIP list would encompass those guests that have a higher rating plus a great review, like an excellent review that they provided for the organization. And so when the cleaning team enters the property to check on the property before they start their cleaning tasks, they take photographs of some key areas and provide that to us in Slack. And at that point, they rate the guest, and we review that and we see. So it's on a scale of 1 to 10, and so 7, 8, 9, 10 are pretty good ratings. A 2 or 3 is probably going to be a do not book type of guest. And so things are broken, a lot of things are missing. That type of guest we would not target at all. All other guests we do target with emails, but the VIP guests, they'll get a separate type of email. As I mentioned before, the one with, the additional incentives, inviting them back over the weekend, or, if there's some availability, we do send those invites, and all of that is automated on back in the PMS.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you, Rachel. I'd like to ask a question to all the moderators. What about pricing strategies and minimum night stay strategies? Do you use that at all to attract great guests?
Yeah, I do.
Of course, that's a huge part of it.
Perfect. Let's hear from both Norman and John. Whoever would like to go first.
So usually what I typically do is my strategy is geared towards getting people to stay for a little bit longer. So not really a fan of like the 3 days per night or less kind of model, but if I have to do it, I will. But what we do is we usually price very high for short-term stays, anything less than say like 5 days. And for anything more than 5 days, especially for 30 plus days, we do give a steep discount. So like what me and my partner do is we have like a set price target that we want to hit for each property for the month-long bookings. And so we discount our price to basically hit that. And if people do book for short-term stays, then they usually do pay a premium. So in short, what I'm trying to say is like we've identified our target clients within that length of stay period. And so we specifically incentivize them to book our properties more than everybody else because we're giving the discount for that reservation. So like it'll be something like say like 30% discount if you're staying for 30 plus days. If you're staying for 14 days, it might be like 20%, so on and so forth.
So I have a very similar strategy, except I like the shorter term guests and not the longer term guests. So so it's exactly the opposite. But I know like who I want to attract. I want people who are staying, 5 to 9 days ideally. And so my pricing is based around that. A couple things that I do. Far out, I don't want people booking, and so I actually increase my rates by 30, 40, 50% further out. I also, as you get further out, the minimum length of stay changes. So, if you're 3 months out, the minimum length will be, 7 days as opposed to 3 or 5 days. And so it's the combination of how much you're paying when you're booking and how long of a booking that you need to make to keep kind of the kind of guests that I want booking with me.
So that brings up a really good point, is just the fact of identifying who you want as a guest is part of how to attract good guests. So John, where did you get to the conclusion that 5 to 9 night stay was going to be the best kind of guest for you? And that, I mean, because that's definitely different than a majority, I would say. I mean, at least like in my area, if I see someone that's going to be staying for 2, 3, 4 weeks, I'm like, heck yeah, they're there. They're going to be treating the place like their own. They're probably here on work. And usually those types of people are going to not be in the house very much anyway. So the house gets treated pretty well. So what is it about 5 to 9 night stays, and how did you find that out?
So, my market is in Honolulu, Hawaii, primarily. And so my avatar essentially is, vacationers, very few people who are coming for work. And I have mostly larger properties, meaning 2-bedroom, 2-bath. So these aren't huge. But 2-bedroom, 2-baths are my kind of niche. And so what I'm targeting are families, right? I want like a family of 4 or like 2 families up to 8 people. And so in my market, it's essentially vacation. And so people are able to take about a week, maybe 2 weeks of vacation. And so that's kind of the ideal avatar of a family coming on vacation to Hawaii. So that's why I got to this point. In terms of longer stays, because my operation is accustomed to, the turnover, I just find that the turnover after a longer stay, there are many more variables that my team has to deal with when someone stayed over 2 weeks. And so it's not that I won't accept a 2-week reservation, but I just like that constant flow of guests coming in and coming out. So that's another thing that I like. I also, charge I also charge a lot more than my actual cost for cleaning. And so actually a part of my revenue generation is also cleaning. And so I do want more turnovers than less. So it's a combination of multiple things, but I think my market kind of drives the guest avatar that I go after.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, and that's an easy way to get more income, right? You upcharge the guest, call it 20, 30% on cleaning, and you're making another income. And then what we've noticed as we scaled is that income became less important to us as we saw, hey, if we can add another property, that would be the income provider. So for us, we love those longer term stays now because it means less turnovers, which means we can add more properties, which means we can scale faster. But that's pretty awesome. Rafa, did you have something?
No, sorry. I was trying to clap the mic with the long-term stays.
All good.
Sorry, guys. I've been in and out of phone calls all morning. But
all good.
What John was saying, I'm surprised, John, that you actually like short-term stays. But I guess you're right, though, right? Depends on your market because you do a lot of vacation rentals. Me, I love long-term stays. I love anything over 30 days because I have to basically set and forget that apartment. And I don't have to worry about it for the next month or two. And I can worry about the other ones that I actually have that are rotating guests through them. I've also found that with long-term stays, the only thing I really need to do after a long-term guest is a deep cleaning of the apartment. So my cleaners are all instructed, and they all know that if it's been more than 30 days since you last touched that apartment, it's got to be a deep clean no matter what. And that way the apartment kind of gets, touched up, and then they'll notify me. And with these long-term guests, I've really never had any issues because it's usually people who are either here for work or it ends up being like an insurance claim or something like that. And I have actually found that the only time I've had trouble with long-term stays is with guests who have booked below my regular average rate for that month. So what I mean by that is that they've gotten a significant discount, either because I dropped the ball on my pricing or they got lucky and happened to catch it on a month where it's like on the lower end. And it ends up being problems, 2-3 weeks in, where like the guest is being rude to the neighbors, or like they're constantly smoking or something of that nature. Otherwise, long-term stays for me are gold. I just want to throw that in there.
Awesome. Thank you, Rafa. So we got about 30 minutes left. I'd like to start opening it up to audience questions. We've had a ton of great points being made about how to repel bad guests and attract good ones, but I'm sure there's got to be someone in the audience that's asking a question in their head right now, and I want to encourage you to go ahead and raise your hand, press that little raise hand button down at the bottom, and we will invite you up to the stage so that you can ask your question. In the meantime, I'm trying to think of any other questions that I could ask, or if anyone else on the stage right now has any other points about this topic. And for me, I think too, just the question that I asked earlier about what to do in regards to minimum night stays. We're always trying to, if you can kind of picture it, it's like a vase with a bunch of big rocks in it. And those are the long-term stays. And we're trying to fill up the majority of that vase with these big rocks, the 7-night stays, the 10-night stays, the 14-night stays at top price. And then the sand that we pour into that vase is basically filling in those gaps. So the 2-night stay, the 3-night stay, that gets closer when we're trying to, of course, fill those in. But the more that we get, quote unquote, eager for those gap fillings, the bigger or the more important our pre-screening process really becomes. And that's where it's like, hey, can we really accept a guest for one night on a Friday night who has 0 reviews and isn't giving us a good reason? No, probably not. So we got to have that pre-screening really up to date. But that being said, before I ramble too much, we've got a few people up on stage now that want to ask some questions. Definitely recognize a few of you. Hey, Richard, how you doing, man? You have a question for us?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
How you doing, guys? Thanks for all the knowledge you guys are dropping. My question is, say I'm in the New York City region, and basically the law here, says that you have to rent for at least 30 days, essentially. And I was wondering, how would you sort of, what would you do differently to target a longer term staying guest if you know that that's your avatar?
I think definitely there are a couple of different OTAs or websites you can get on that kind of cater toward more of that avatar. Like you have, if you're looking for like a traveling nurse, you might need like 1 or 2 months, or there's different business or corporate travel sites. Even Airbnb itself, as they've kind of gone through COVID, I've noticed that they've like started highlighting more buttons on the host side where if you want to like different features that kind of highlight like, hey, going after longer guests, you can go, put those in your night minimums as far as, your 30 night minimums. But definitely just kind of going after, if you're next to a convention center or a hospital or a university or in some sort of industrial park, kind of finding the different websites or OTAs that kind of might be leaning into that niche a little bit, I think would be a really good place to start.
Would you set up your sort of property any differently?
You might want to kind of highlight or feature as far as like start with your listing for sure. You'd want to just like you be really leaning into all the different like hot like word verbiage as far as, hey, like this is catering toward like that those longer term stays. As far as the listing itself, or as far as the house itself, it would be pretty similar. I mean, it's not so much on a huge like, for example, we have a couple of houses that are right in the stadium villages that we're gearing toward like sports and football stuff. So we have a lot of things that are calls to action for people who are going out to the local bars or the local sporting events or different coupons surrounding that. Maybe for your house specifically, if it's catered more toward long-term things, maybe you have maybe things like your check-in list might have, like, instead of, hey, I'm 5 minutes from the stadium, hey, here's the best local grocery store, because you're probably going to have to hit the grocery store a handful of times, or you have different calls to action for things that are people who are going to be there for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, as opposed to, a couple of days. I'm not, maybe there might be someone else. I'm really kind of skipping me as far as like the house furnishings itself. I don't think there'd be a lot of differences off the top of my head, but maybe just kind of changing your verbiage and like kind of the things you're leaning into as far as their guest experience, highlighting things that they might be like hitting like over and over again, whether it's like a grocery store, here's your nearest, I don't know, gas station or hospital, or just like whatever.
Hey, Jim, I'd love to jump in. Oh, sorry, Rafa, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I can chime in and give advice on that as well, but I want someone else. If so, go ahead. Go ahead.
Great, Richard. I'm originally from New York, so I definitely would highlight the best of what New York has to offer in terms of what that guest would need, right? So you can have perhaps like a link to the MTA and travel, like a train information, how to get around, what's the closest train or bus line to you. Have that information either sent in your check-in instructions or perhaps your listing. Also, a dedicated workspace would be really good. As as Jim mentioned, the closest supermarkets, things like this guest would need to enhance the time in which they are with you. If there's not a washer and dryer in the unit, then I would also list the closest laundromat, or, if the laundromat is not close, maybe a few of them that do like pick up and drop off services. Anything that's going to enhance this guest stay for the time period in which they are going to be with you. I'm Lorena, I'm done speaking.
Thank you. Rachel, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, just real quick. I had the opportunity to serve several nurses and respiratory therapists, as well as radiology professionals in the Atlanta properties. And for us, the biggest thing for these guests as we kind of walk through the guest journey is to ensure that they are going to be in a very comfortable environment where they can get enough rest and just kind of restorative rest before they head back into work. And so whereas most of our pictures, we love them to be super bright and super airy, we want to highlight that we do have blackout window coverings. We also provide a noise machine as well, a white noise machine as well, just in case there's construction and this is that shift worker that works overnights. And just things like that. If you can highlight those things and even take pictures of those items and just have a little montage or a collage of those items highlighted, that'd be great. Pictures speak, 1,000 words. They may not see the verbiage, but if they see a picture, it's like, oh, okay. Blackout windows, noise machine. I even provide earplugs as well, just in case. I used to work overnights. I'm in healthcare, so yeah, the whole 9 yards to get that sleep during the day. I hope that helps.
I wanted to add in, Rachel. I totally agree with you. And then, I think you also would want to add in your listing that, it's New York. I'm assuming that you're like in somewhere in the 5 boroughs. New York is a noisy city. It's a beautiful city, but it's noisy. So also setting up that expectation for the guests that we are in the heart of the city. Street noise, neighboring noise can be heard, but then adding in some of those things that Rachel mentioned in the listing, in that wording would be beneficial as well.
So, Richard, too, what Lorena and Rachel both said, right? Figure out what that customer that stays 30 days or longer. Work desk is gold. Printer, gold, right? Rachel is spot on. A lot of people don't think about that, but blackout curtains is huge because travel nurses and nurses that work at night need a place to sleep in the dark during the day. I want to talk about more of the property side of it. If your market is aimed at 30-day stays, my suggestion, and again, this is just off of experience, you're not going to go and set up you're not going to go ahead and set up a 4 or 5 bedroom home, because odds are, now that's not to say it won't happen, but odds are you're not going to get a 30-day booking for those gigantic homes unless it's something like an insurance claim where an entire family needs to move into that location for a specific amount of time while their house is being fixed. You're going to want to aim towards that business traveler who's traveling by himself or with the business partner. You're going to want to aim for that couple who's here for 30 days or more. And you're going to want to do something like a 1 or 2 bedroom unit. And I want Norman to touch on this too, because I think he focuses on business travelers, and I'm sure he's gone through this and he knows exactly the type of listings that we would like to set up for those type of 30-day stays. Norman, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, so I mean, as in general, as far as amenities go, one of the things we do is we form, and I hate this word, but we form avatars. Basically, we have general ideas of the specific type of work travelers that you want staying in our properties. So we get very specific with it, because the more specific we get with it, the better it helps us make decisions as far as what to include in the property. But pretty much what everyone else said was pretty much on point. One thing I do want to add is when it comes to that business traveler, don't sleep on having multiple workspaces, not just one desk, but try to have 2 options. At least if you're doing a 1-bedroom, have at least one in a bedroom and then one in a living room. And the reason is because a lot of those people travel pairs. For example, when I travel with my girlfriend in Mexico, she works remote, I work remote. So we need multiple dedicated workspaces, even if it's a 1-bedroom apartment, because if I'm taking meetings in the living room, she could be taking meetings in the bedroom. And so a lot of people, especially for the 1-bedroom level, that are trying to do that, they don't recognize that. So definitely have multiple options for dedicated workspaces for remote travelers, because a lot of people are working remote now and people don't want to stay in their hometowns. So if you're trying to do the 30-day stays, you have to have at least 2 desks in there. That's my take on it. And then also constantly interview your guests. It's very, it's manual, but there are ways to automate it, but you get the best quality interviews when you're doing phone calls with your guests and you're actually after they've stayed with you. So you're figuring out okay, what do you do? What do you do? How often do you come here? You want to get those data points on specific travelers, so you can get a general idea of what industries come here the most, how on average, how long do those contracts run, what specifically do they come here for, and what drives demand, so that you as an operator, you can be in tune with the facts and you can adjust your offering according to what's going on with the workforce. And we don't just house people from workforce, that's our preference, but we do the short-term stays that hedge against that. So if for whatever reason, contracts are up, I can't get a 30-day stay, I'm not against having short-term stays in the unit. It's just that's primarily what I go after, the business travelers, just because there's just mad benefits with it, honestly, in my opinion.
Awesome. Yeah. Hey, great question. Sorry, Jim, go ahead.
I was just going to also say one last thing, and I apologize if this was already said. I was letting out some destructive animals to go outside to the bathroom. But to piggyback on what Norman was saying about the desk, I also, if we have a place that we're going to get maybe a long-term business type traveler in addition to the desk spaces in as many rooms as possible, making sure we're splitting the hard lines and getting some splitters, and making sure that if they're going to be doing a lot of work from that area, maybe they're splitting time between the hospital or office or also the home, that they have access to a hardline internet, and if that's not available, then putting in some Wi-Fi amps. And then also as it pertains to New York specifically, having actually got my start on Airbnb living in Bed-Stuy, I found it very, very helpful for people to be recommending to me different apps that were really helpful for people like transplants who are going to be there for a couple months, whether it's for Lorena was saying, for the subway system, or different event discoveries, or finding out where the best little Italy in every borough is. That's not necessarily the tourist trap that's Mulberry Street or things like that. So just kind of making sure that you kind of really steer it toward your specific market. But also just want to throw in that thing about the internet.
Yeah, no, that's good. Richard, awesome question, man. We're going to move on to the next one. But one thing that I'll add that I'm surprised wasn't talked about, being pet friendly. If I'm going to, especially for me, I've got dogs. If I'm going to go somewhere for 30 days, having to board my dog is just not, it's not cost effective. So having a pet doggy door or something like that. And of course, having good systems to be able to vet out if the guest has a good animal, so that you're not getting your place destroyed. That's good too. But Thanks so much for the question. Let's move on to the next audience member, Maurice.
Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for bringing me up on the stage. Kyle, this room is amazing. Thank you for just being a wealth of knowledge, all of you. I'm learning so much. I'm a new host out of Chicago. I own a 2-flat. I put my vacant bottom apartment on Airbnb and Vrbo, and I'm on Booking.com also. And I wanted to get your opinion on Booking.com. I'm getting quite a bit of reservations. No one has actually stayed here yet. They're kind of pushed out. But I don't hear a lot of people talking about Booking.com. So I was, trying to see, is that something that you guys, do you have your short-term stays on Booking.com, or do we kind of steer clear from there?
I can go ahead, Norman. Go ahead. I was gonna say we were on Booking.com, and we were actually achieving mild success from Booking.com, especially with the 30-day stays. And I guess the issue that a lot of people have with Booking.com is hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on, but I was saying the issue a lot of people have with Booking.com is Airbnb pretty much holds your hand throughout the creation process of a listing, and even to an extent with the type of people you accept at the property. Booking.com doesn't necessarily hold most people's hands on through that process, and so that's why you don't hear about it. And then the second thing is, from a tech perspective, a lot of the traditional PMS softwares that a lot of new operators use don't have integrations with Booking.com, so that's another reason why you don't hear about it a lot. But for the ones that do, the issue that a lot of people have with Booking.com guests is that a lot of them we used to get good Booking.com guests, and we stopped using it because we just changed softwares, and our software wasn't working the way we wanted to with Booking.com. That's why we stopped. But as far as the platform goes, a lot of people tend to get lower quality guests because they don't know how to implement their systems, how they have it on Airbnb on that platform. But I liked it when I used it, but unfortunately, we had to stop because we changed softwares and our software didn't integrate with it the way we wanted it to. So we have VAs, and we try to have separate accounts so that the VAs can message guests. And Booking.com wasn't letting us do that with your porter.
I have a love-hate relationship with Booking.com. And I think it was you, Maurice, who asked. So here's the thing, right? Booking.com is great because anything that I price on Airbnb, I price at a 30% outcharge on Booking.com. Immediately. That's the first thing I do. Because you're going to get higher rates through Booking.com. But the thing is that you are going to attract a lot of, I don't want to say bad guests, but a lot of fraud if you don't have the right things in place. And exactly what Norman just said, Booking.com is basically put your listing up, figure out the rest yourself. You got to figure out how to get payment. I think now they do their own payment system, but you have to figure out everything that Airbnb does already for you. Airbnb is very simple to get started. That's why it's always I always tell people, go in tiers, right? First, go on Airbnb. Second, VRBO. From there, start going to the different OTAs, being Booking.com the very last one. A lot of things don't integrate, like Norman was saying. Now there's a lot of great things that do it, like Smart BNB's now on it as well, which is awesome. But you're going to get a lot of things a lot of reservations that are fraud, which means you have to do your own vetting, your own background checks. You have to double check that they're using correct credit cards with their IDs. All of that's going to happen. Chargebacks are huge, and it's your responsibility to fight all of that. So if you're not prepared for those things, it's something you need to start preparing for now, because it's going to come up, guaranteed, at one point or another. And so with me, I go on them from time to time, and then I end up leaving from time to time. Some of my best reservations, I've gone a $12,000 28-day reservation from them, and it was nuts, right? And it was a 1-bedroom apartment. So again, I love them because they bring in great amounts of cash, but they bring in really fraudulent amounts of guests as well. So go ahead, John. I know you want to.
Well, I just want to say, because I've been on Booking.com for about 4 years now, and all these things that you say are true if you don't have your settings right. But there are definitely settings in Booking.com, because when I first got on, I got people, holding my room for like 2 months and then canceling. And like, I went through all that stuff that people have, experienced on booking.com. But there are settings, and once you do that, you literally like only attract the best guests. And so now I'll share a couple of secrets, right? So if you've been on for a while, they have a thing called the Genius program. That's kind of like Superhost, right? But you pay an additional commission to be on that. So what I do is I increase my rate by more than that percentage, so that anyone who's not in the Genius program, they're not even going to consider my property because I'm just priced way out of the range. But then the people who are on the Genius program find it either a value or, acceptable. And so I guess, long story short, booking.com, you can really make it work. And like Rafa said, you can get some crazy rates above and beyond what you can get on Airbnb. And Norman, you were saying that you're on Your Porter. Your Porter is integrated with booking.com, so you can definitely get back onto it.
Yeah, to clarify that, we wanted. So the issue was we use Your Porter's front-facing website, and we wanted our VAs to have separate accounts when it access kind of like Smart B&B. And like with the way our tech stack was designed, we couldn't we couldn't make it happen. Like everybody would have to share the same account to message guests on from booking.com on Your Porter. Like it just wasn't feasible. So we liked it when we had it, but because like our tech stack just changed, like we had to remove we just had to remove that integration. And like when we we're probably going to switch to another platform within the next couple of months. But like when we make that switch, we're probably going to get back on booking.com. But like our stack is kind of complicated. We actually use Your Porter and Smart B&B. So like because of that,
so do I.
I couldn't make it work in a cohesive manner.
Yeah, I'm actually struggling through that right now. I want to get booking.com onto Your Porter, onto Smart B&B, but then the direct bookings start not being in one centralized location. So
exactly,
I think I'm going to do the same thing. What are you switching over to? Just curious.
I'm looking at uplisting. It's a little bit more expensive, but at the scale we're at, like it makes the monthly price makes sense. Like I didn't like it at first because like when we were smaller, like the cost was pretty high compared to everybody else, but it got cheaper the more units you have. And so I think we are at a point where like we might make that switch. So I'm looking at them now. And like it's not something I'm gonna just immediately do because like it's at least a week of like tech work, like wiring and stuff. But I'm strongly considering it based off of what I see.
Cool. I'm actually considering them too. Anyway, sorry to get this off track.
No, you guys are good. Thanks for all that value about booking.com. I have not used it myself, so that's good to know. Yeah, go for it, Jim.
Just to go back to the original question too, I think it was Maurice, as he was mentioning why a lot of the RINs maybe don't talk about booking.com as much. I think a lot of it has to do with just the fact that about 90% of booking.com's business is overseas and not really here domestic. And so that's why I've always kind of found that I'm like John, I actually really, really do like booking.com. And once you have your systems in place, it can be a really, really good tool. You do get a couple scam inquiries every once in a while, but you can weed those out easily enough. And I typically find that PMS systems who are based overseas, just knowing that booking.com is so big overseas compared to here in the US, if you get like a PMS system that is based like in Europe or overseas, they typically have a little bit more user-friendly integrations across the board.
Awesome. Perfect. Thanks for the question, Maurice. And let's move on to Blake.
Hello, everybody. Man, thank you for this room. This is amazing. I have a question. Sticking with a little bit of the longer stays, I'm focusing mainly on nurses. I believe Rachel was actually one speaking about it. Wanted to know, is there a specific distance that nurses need to be from a hospital? Because I think I'm about 5 to 10 miles away from the hospital, but didn't know if they needed to be within 3 miles or 2 miles. Like I do understand some doctors need to be a little closer. I didn't know for nurses. Thank you.
Hey, I can speak up, but Lorena, I'll let you jump in. This is definitely within her wheelhouse. But a lot of my nurses, they've been really comfortable with anything that's within 11 miles or less. And so always be thinking about the transportation situation as well. A lot of times these healthcare providers, they do bring their own vehicle because they're going to be with you for anywhere from 6 to 13 weeks or so is typically what I've seen the contracts written as. And so as long as they have a vehicle that they can go back and forth to the facility, they should be good to go. If you're in a where parking may be something that's paid for, I'm in Georgia, south of Atlanta, like almost rural. And so I don't encounter that. We always have a significant amount of parking, but I do know that is definitely something that they look at and something to take into consideration in terms of, that particular property. So 11 miles or less has been really, I think, the sweet spot. The closer, the better, of course. And I'll give it to Lorena because I know you're in that field for sure.
Thanks, Rachel. Hey, Blake, this is Lorena speaking. So I'm a registered nurse and my husband is as well. And so I think it really depends on your geographical area. So, for example, if you're someone that's hosting in New York, it doesn't necessarily matter because most people in New York are going to take public transportation. So what would be more important is how close you are to the train, how close you are to the buses and things of that nature. But say down here in Atlanta, everyone is mainly driving, everywhere. So if you can be a little bit closer, if you're looking for properties, if you could be a little bit closer to some of the larger hospitals that you would be thinking about, that would be more beneficial. I'm Lorena, I'm done speaking.
Okay, great. Yes, I'm actually in Los Angeles, and I'm kind of a little equidistant between the hospitals and as well as the airport. So I'm also looking at stewardesses and that as well. Just want to help out as much as possible.
That sounds like a really, really great location, Blake. I don't think that you would have an issue. The other thing I wanted to add in is why are the nurses traveling into that area? So if they're just doing a 13-week, 6-week contract, more than most likely, they're going to be traveling back and forth to that workplace on their own. But if it is a strike that they're coming into the city for, the nursing agencies most of the times have like some type of bus or minibus that they are helping these nurses travel back and forth to those hospitals that they're working the strike at. So transportation in a sense would not be an issue for them. But it does, like I said, sounds like where you're positioned is just a really great area for whoever would be coming into the city.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles. So, and fortunately, my property does have a place where you can park your car. We actually have a garage as well as street parking specifically for our complex. So our area. So it is right in the middle, and it's great. I just didn't know if there needed to be a specific oh, is that too far or what the case is. Thank you so much, ladies.
Awesome. Thanks for the question, Blake, and awesome input there, Lorraine. I love that. That was really good. Last question. We got time for one more, and we're going to kick it over to Kirk.
Hey, how you doing, guys? Thank you. Hey, Ruff, what's going on, man? Good to see you. A question. I was wondering, so how do you go about targeting the travel nurses? Because that's something I'm actually interested in. I just got into the space. Thanks to Rafa introduced me. I still was up on Airbnb now, but right now I'm only getting like 3 days, 2-day stays. How do you guys go about targeting travel nurses?
So for those of you that
I'm within about a mile to a mile and a half of 3 major hospitals. So they could actually walk to the hospital if they wanted.
So for those of you, because Kirk, I don't know what you're speaking into, but it sounds like there's a ton of static, and it sounds like you're at the back of a tunnel there. But it sounded like you're asking how to market to traveling nurses, and that you're so far just getting a lot of 1, 2, 3 night stays, but you want to get the longer term stays. So anyone have any thoughts on that for Kirk?
Sure. Oops, sorry, Norman, go ahead.
No, you go. You first.
Thank you, Norman. So Kirk, it sounds like you're in a really, really great location. I would definitely highlight that if you have not already in your listing, the walkability to these hospitals. The other thing that I would suggest for you to do is look into Furnished Finder. It is a marketplace where people in the medical field do use in order for them to find housing when they're on a travel assignment. You can also join some of the Facebook groups in your area. And there's a few of them in particular that basically just focus on housing. And I know a lot of nurses use that as a resource when they're trying to, find some place to stay. And I think that's about it. Thank you.
I can add on a little bit. So to talk a little bit more about Furnish Finder, a lot of the leads you're going to receive, or let me say it like this. We're on Furnish Finder, and we get a lot of leads from Furnish Finder, and we've seen the most success from actually just like physically closing on those leads. So either reaching out to them or cold calling them, and like physically just selling your property to them. That's how we've seen the most success. But also a little bit. Also to talk about that a little bit more, like different traveling nurses work for different agencies, different contracts, etc. And so with that being said, there's some agencies that pay more than other agencies. So you may see an issue, or you may hear people, I guess for lack of a better word, complaining about your price point. But what we've done is we've just tried to work with the nurses that work for the agencies that reimburse them for their housing on a 2-week basis, and we also try to offer flexible contract terms, because that was a gap in our market. Like a lot of people would get nurses and they wouldn't be flexible with their contract, and a lot of times their contract would get extended. So what we decided to do was with nurses especially. We just keep our calendar open for them even after their checkout date, because 9 times out of 10 they usually extend. So just consider that. So in short, when you do get on Furnish Finder, just make sure, if you want to see the most success, just call and close on those leads on your phone, or have someone else do it for you. And then when they get there, if you want to keep them as long as possible, just offer flexible contract terms, offer a flexible stay with their contract, and we've seen a lot of success with that.
Thank you. I am on Furnish Finder. It's actually signed up this weekend. I don't think I got any leads.
There's also Facebook groups, but in a lot of the Facebook groups, you might receive some flack for your price. But like I said, different nurses work for different. So the hiring agencies that reimburse or offer some kind of something similar to that will usually cover you. So there's Furnish Finder, there's Facebook. If you're on Airbnb as well, you can pretty much do what everybody was saying earlier with getting specified amenities for them, and then offering incentivized pricing for your monthly stays to kind of attract them. And then a lot of times, if you're trying to get your direct bookings up, if you got a direct booking website, you can. And I don't recommend doing this, but a lot of times you can give them a discount for a 5-day stay or a 3-day stay, and then you can convert them to a direct booking, just via phone call. I know some people are doing that, including me. So I mean that's another option. And then there's nurses will book from Booking.com. We used to get nurses from Booking.com, and we've also gotten nurses from Verbo. A lot of times, if people contact you about discounts, like I said earlier, just have them stay for a bit and then just convert them to a direct booking, and then they get literally a 10% discount because you're not paying a massive service fee.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I wanted to add one thing and just kind of touch base on something that Norman just mentioned about the flack that you get for the pricing. When we first started, I'm so grateful to the nurses that were very merciful on me when I placed our ad on on a Furnish Finder Facebook group. The property was a 4-bedroom, so definitely not the ideal property for a traveling nurse. And it was priced over, $5,000 or $6,000 or something per month, which is the types of properties that we typically invest in. And so, I wasn't getting any leads or anything. So one of the nurses, they reached out and I asked why we're not getting leads, any pointers on the pictures. I mean, everything. They said the place looks great, but it would probably be a better fit for a physician or a surgeon or something like that. So sometimes it is the pricing for sure that can be out of the price point. Usually for the nurses, it's a 1 unit, something that is going to be for our market below $2,000. That's going to be a better fit for the nurses. So that's my personal experience. So I don't know if that's, a hurdle that you're encountering also, but if you're not getting a lot of leads, perhaps even putting it out there on the Facebook group and asking some of the nurses, let them know you're getting started and asking them, if they have any pointers as to why you're not getting any bookings or interest.
Yeah, and to add on to that a little bit more, like what a lot of people do if they still want to get nurses in their houses, specifically like 4 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms, is they'll rent it out by the room, but they'll usually do it for like, okay, this one is going to be like women only, this one is like men only. So a lot of people do that, and we used to do that in slow season with our 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condos that we used to have. So like if for whatever reason we couldn't get bookings at our price, be it because like it's slow season, we did rent it out by the rooms to the nurses, and usually that was within like the price point. And a lot of them like that because like some of them like travel in pairs, so they'd love to live with a friend. I mean that was a good it was a good option for us during slow season. So if you have a house or if you have any bigger properties, consider that. But like a lot of times, like when you have to go down that route, you might cut down a little bit on price. But like we usually don't have issues with nurses, especially like the ones that like they're going through our screening process. Like we usually don't have any issues with them.
Awesome. Great question, Kurt. And that's going to wrap things up, guys. So before we leave here, I want to give every moderator an opportunity to give an outro and mainly let people know where you can connect with these moderators. If you have not already, make sure to follow all the moderators and especially the ones that you connected with, and just continue to follow their content if they're putting that out. So let's start with Rachel. Thanks for jumping on today. And where can people connect with you?
Hey, I'm Rachel. You can find me here on Clubhouse or on my Insta. Thank you.
Awesome. And what's your Instagram handle?
It is.
Did I put you on the spot?
Short-term gems. So short.term.gems.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Rachel. Always a pleasure seeing you in here. Jesse, you there? All right. We'll come back to Jesse. Neil, how about yourself? Thanks for jumping on here. And where can people connect with you?
Hey guys, Facebook Clubhouse is probably best. I run my own Airbnb community in Facebook. So for Airbnb, I guess. But yeah, Facebook's probably the best. So it's just Facebook.com/Neil.Wagner.
Perfect. Thank you, Neil. Norman, tons of value today, man. Thanks for being on. And how can people connect with you?
You can connect with me on Instagram. Just click on, I guess, my picture in Clubhouse and just scroll to the bottom. And my Instagram is my name, norm.hamilton. Just send me a message. Let us know what you thought about today. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Thank you, Norman. Lorena.
Kyle, wonderful room as always. Always look forward to being here with you guys. I'm Lorena. You can find me on Instagram, and that is in my bio. But if you don't want to click, it is, what is it? Oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart. It's Sleep Lux Atlanta on Instagram, and you guys can connect with me there. Send me a DM. I'd love to talk to you guys about anything short-term rental related. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you, Lorena, and my fearless co-host, Jim.
What up, everybody? And thanks, Kyle, and everyone here on stage for just another great week. Took a lot of notes here. Anyone can find me here on Clubhouse, on Facebook. And I just want to reemphasize one of John's points. John's no longer here, but I loved my favorite nugget of the day was just want to reemphasize for people in the crowd that line he had about the referencing hey, you had a prior incident. The neighbors or myself are watching closely. We're right across the street. Even if it's not, even if it's a white lie, I have used that for years, and I've weeded out so many bad apples. So I just wanted to highlight that one more time. But yeah, thanks again, Kyle, for another great room, and looking forward to next week.
Awesome. Yeah. And next week is where you guys can find us. Before we log off here, make sure that you are putting it on your calendar every single Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, noon Eastern Standard Time. And then for me, my name is Kyle Stanley, and just would love for you to connect on my my podcast, which actually was a great episode today with the founder of Airbnb Automated, which if you've ever Googled a YouTube video on Airbnb, you're seeing Sean Rakijic, and that is the Airbnb Automated guy. I had him on my show, and a really great episode. Talks about how he went from being homeless to basically an Airbnb millionaire. So great place to continue to learn. And then we've got a Facebook group, like I mentioned, Airbnb Masterminds. And if you just go on a Facebook, search Airbnb Masterminds, you will be able to find it and be a part of the 6,000 and growing network of people looking to build an Airbnb business. So thank you all for joining us here on the Airbnb STR lunch break. And thanks to all the moderators for bringing tons of value. And we will see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.